Welcome back to another episode of the Club Cultivate podcast. I am very excited about today's conversation. I think that if you have any interest in photo, video, creative skills, even a little bit of graphic design, which we won't dive into today, and want to pursue working at a breed association or within the cattle industry and beyond, today's conversation will be super valuable. We're so excited to have Kelsey Vejraska join us today. So Kelsey, welcome to the podcast. Let's dive in with you sharing a little bit of your story of how you became photographer, filmmaker, however you label it.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of to backtrack quite a bit, I grew up as a fourth generation Angus producer in North Central Washington. And that's kind of what my beginning first years looked like. I did the FFA, grew up in the junior Angus program. I was on the junior board. And then when I came to the decision about where to go to school, my natural kind of fit was Oklahoma State. So I went there and spent 4 years at OSU, got my degree. One in ag comm and then one in ag business as well, with the dual degree program that they have. But I really found my niche when I started my internship with the Oklahoma Youth Expo. And that was actually kind of through a mutual friend. I knew JD, who had just recently started as the director of communications there. And just from growing up in the Angus business and showing and those kinds of things in the Northwest. And then he needed an intern and he was like, "Hey, do you want to be my intern?" I was like, "Hey, I know nothing about a camera actually." And he was like, "Oh, it's fine. You'll figure it out." So that's kind of where I got my start. I knew going into the internship it was going to be communications focused, but I think kind of being naive in AgCom, I was thinking photo. Wrong. He said that little red button, that's what you press to record. You're going to do that. And I said, "Okay, fine." But it's really taken off from there. And we focused on video a lot, I think, in the beginning of my internship, and I kind of fell in love with filmmaking and storytelling and the emotion that you can draw with video and those kinds of things that I think get left out of the other photo or graphic design or whatever. So yeah, that's kind of my story. I graduated in 2022 from Oklahoma State and went straight to the American Hereford Association as their audio visual producer or audio visual specialist. Excuse me. Specialist, sorry, still kind of fighting the Denver crud a little bit. But my title is audiovisual specialist. My game, I would say, is content. So video, photo, graphic design, all of those things is kind of my everyday there. So, and I've been there for 4 years now. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it had been that long.
Coming up on 4 in May.
That is crazy. I think you point out a really interesting thing with what you just said about like your title versus content. I think it's so interesting. Maybe it's just smaller companies are behind, but I don't feel like I see very many titles of like content creators when that's really like, I think that's a really great point that you make.
Yeah, it definitely started out as primarily video, but then when you realize kind of the story packages that we can put together as a team of two, it goes to everything else pretty fast.
Okay, before we dive into specific questions, why don't you share a little bit more about what you do at Hereford within that content role? Knowing that, like you just said, it's a small team, which I think is really common across a lot of smaller ag organizations. Just high level, what is a day in the life of Kelsey look like, or what are some of your bigger things you work on?
Yeah, higher level would definitely be like event coverage and digital marketing in a sense. Taylor Bell and I kind of tag team the social media. I typically do like the visual portion, and she does a lot of the strategy and planning and writing captions and those kinds of things. And then in the summer, we'll pick up travel pretty heavy and really just try to get on like boots on the ground on operations that are capitalizing on the Hereford breed and really telling the Hereford story and giving us a chance to tell the story through kind of an association role rather than the operation. So we've gone to a lot of commercial producers, a lot of grocery stores for CHB, really trying to round the whole package out and show the whole industry from our point of view.
Beautiful. I know every day is very different, so that was probably not the right
Super
question.
different, yeah.
I just saw your TikTok of January and I was like, how many states were you in the month of January?
A lot, yeah. January is busy. January, especially with bull sale season and everything starting to pick up on top of national shows, that one gets busy fast. But February slows down quite a bit, and I think I'm home almost every week of February at one point or another. So that's a win.
Very good. Well, it's part of the fun part of the job, right? Getting to do all the things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best part. That's the
If
draw for sure.
Yeah. It's such a weird thing how the best part is also the most challenging of like managing time and not being dead, but then still getting like that's
Right.
what you want to be doing.
Yeah, and still like filling your cup and doing things that are like good for you. Yeah.
Pros and cons for anyone interested in traveling a lot.
Amen.
Let's see. If we go back to your internship, I guess I didn't realize that you didn't have any video experience prior to that internship. And I think from some of the younger kids that I've worked with, or like, I'm not sure if you have experience with your interns coming in at Hereford, but I feel like there's a lot of people that do photo, like you said, and not as much video. So when you were learning back in the beginning, what were some of the big pieces that you had to work through, or like what were some of the pivotal things that helped you the quickest kind of learn the beginning parts or like the essentials of video?
Yeah, I think first of all, having a good mentor. So JD Roseman, he kind of was there for me to bounce any question off of. I was very like, I wasn't scared to ask him a question. Like never made me feel stupid, those kinds of things. Super great teacher. So can't say enough good things about him. But also being able to just get out there and do it. So like my first OYE, I probably sat in the ring for I don't know, 6, 7 hours a day just filming. And I didn't do any editing, just kind of figuring out how the camera worked, what the lighting looked like, watching those back on my camera screen and like making sure that there wasn't, drop frames or I wasn't getting weird lights or lines from LEDs or anything that looked kind of obscure. And if I was picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, how do I fix this?" But really, I think repetition, honestly, for video and just filming clips. And then when I started to edit a little bit more, it was definitely YouTube University. I would find a cool video that I liked and think, okay, how can I break this down into pieces and what do I do to put these pieces together? And then unfortunately turn to YouTube and say, okay, now how do I get here? Because the effects and the controls and Premiere just kind of stacks things on top of each other and does whatever they want. But I think really kind of baptism by fire is what we called it with JD because he just said, here's the camera, go. But once I got past that, like learning the camera functions and feeling comfortable with the camera in my hand, I think it really depended on like watching other videos that had been produced and kind of trying to replicate that to be able to feel comfortable then back on the editing screen. Sorry, transitions and those kinds of things again.
I have two questions from here. First, when it comes to getting inspiration, sometimes I've done the same thing on YouTube, but now that you're at the top of your game and there's few creators in the, I want to say like an ag space or like livestock in particular, how do you draw inspiration without copying?
I think staying, first of all, getting outside of your industry and like sports racing or motocross, we love to watch like the Masters and the Derby and those kinds of things. And like they're close, they follow the trends, but there's some insane creatives there too. And like sports is a really good example for like different content that I definitely try to like pay attention to. But as far as inspiration, I think it's really important to be intentional about what you consume for what you're going to intentionally create, like following, especially for graphic design and those kinds of things, following different designers that walk through those like step by step graphics that are wicked cool towards the end. A lot of them are sports graphics, but like those kinds of things are definitely super high on the list for how to stay inspired, I would say.
I'm about to like unfollow everyone because sometimes I unfollow everyone within our own space because
Yeah.
sometimes I think even if you're not trying to copy it, it still clouds you're like, oh, I've seen that so many times. So I
Yes.
feel like it can draw to your head without
For
realizing it.
sure. For sure. It's hard, especially when I wanna look at, like, inspiration for sale catalogs or something like that, like, looking at other sale catalogs is what feels right, but then I end up having a catalog that looks like 8 different ones put together by 6 different designers, so it's definitely a hard line to balance for sure.
When you talked about like learning essentials of camera and beginning of editing, how was learning the storytelling piece? Because I think you bring up a great point of like the first piece being, okay, let's just learn how to like film some clips. And then like, how do we piece clips together and make them cool? But then I think there's a third layer of actually telling something. So what was that learning process look like? And what advice would you give now knowing what you know?
Yeah. So that is actually kind of where my, like, root of AdCom comes in, I would say. Since the day I can remember, I was telling people that, like, once I had decided, which I guess another little fun fact, I decided that I was gonna go to OSU in 6th grade. I'm not really sure why. I don't
Oh
remember, like,
gosh.
what the catalyst was, but I have a poster that I made in 6th grade. It says OSU AdCom MagBiz, whatever that was.
She was
And so
committed.
by the time she was, yeah, she's super committed. Go Folks forever. But by the time that I got to, like, 8th grade, 9th grade, you're doing FFA speeches, those kinds of things. Like, overarching piece, I would say, like, theme for everything was always to bridge the gap of communication between producer and consumer. I didn't really know what that looked like, what producer, what consumer. Obviously was raised in the beef industry, so like knew that story pretty well. But I think I've always kind of had that like knack for storytelling, which is what really helped when I learned how to like produce a video, being able to naturally just tell the story in a way that I was comfortable with. That's where I hit my stride too. But I do think, I guess, if I would say tips on storytelling, would be that you can't tell a story that you don't know. So, like, take time to study the story, especially like if you're going to an operation, do research, look at their website, look at the registry, whatever that happens to be. Like, make sure you know who these people are, like, at least try. I'm really bad with faces and names. So, like, if you can at least give an honest effort, the rest of the people will, fill in the gaps. But, like, those kinds of things of really being able to dive deep, like, into the details and then let them put the story together for you, I think is super important. Because if you ask questions, people will tell you, but asking the right questions is the hard part.
So there's something that I've been like toying with lately. I have learned, or like I took a class with a lot of filmmakers, photographers in very far outside of our industry. And a lot of them
Sure.
do mood boards and they plan everything, especially like commercial shoots. Like every shot is scripted out. And I think in my head, that seems like way too easy compared to what we do, where like you're asking the right questions. And so knowing that like when you go on farm, a lot of times you're not planning every shot, but you're taking everything that is given to you. How do you let that dictate your story? And like how does that work into editing post? Does that make a question's kind of all over the place, but like I don't think we get to dictate as much ahead of time. So then how does that
Right.
shape what you're doing after?
I think, oh gosh, that's a tough question, but I understand right where you're going with it because I have sat through quite a few different speaking type things, film sessions, and they all do like mood board type things. And I sit there and go, how would I do this? And like plan shots like this if I don't even know what kind of barn these people have. And like, that's a weird question. Like, I wouldn't want to ask that prior to showing up somewhere, right? Like, hey, what does this place look like so I can plan my shots? Mm, You know,
Right.
but I think also when you get there, it kind of like the story starts piecing together for me and just how like the first interaction works. Like, are they, true cowboys? Are they like my dad who's gonna probably roll up in sweatpants and muck boots on the first try? Like, getting the vibes there and then kind of going from there and letting the story build itself, which seems cliche, but when once the story happens, it kind of happens.
How do you do that? Or when you're putting together your event coverage versus like being on farm, interviewing people, are there things that you do differently for each of those, or is it the same? What does that process look like?
I would say they're relatively different just because like our event coverage stuff is planned for the most part, right? So we get to kind of dive deeper, like especially during nationals and those kinds of things, into some of those stories and like really single out some kids and like get a lot of raw reaction. And I think that's the fun part about film is that you can capture a lot of emotion and reaction with, 5, 10 seconds. Like that's all it really takes. Rather than on farm, you're trying to focus on the cattle and the operation and highlighting the breeder and also the breed and all those kinds of things. So I would say there's definitely some differences in event coverage we like to be a little bit more trendy with, but that's just because I get to kind of do whatever we please there.
This is what we're doing, Taylor Bell, like it or not.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, okay, now write your caption. I'm like, okay, cool.
Okay, well, that brings up a good point. I guess, do you think, especially like I think of like younger people, where do you draw the line of being like, this is an idea that we have, or like, say the board comes to you and you're like, we want to do this versus in my head, this is the vision that I have. How do you toy the line of meeting customer needs versus having your creative vision?
Yeah, that's a toughie also. I feel like you're asking really good questions. You're stumping me. But especially you mentioned the board. I will say we were really lucky. Taylor Bell and I have a very receptive board, and they know that this is kind of our game. They, as long as we're making them happy, they're like, heck yeah, girls, power on. But in the client world, I know they say like the client's always right and those kinds of things, but I do think that there are like specific needs and specific wants that probably can't go together, sometimes, or like, and I just try to break that down by whether that's strategy or whatever it could be. However, if it's something that they're dead set on, I'll do it for you. I sure will. If that's what you want, I'm the one with the camera. I suppose I can do it.
Make it happen somehow.
Yeah, I will make it happen.
I was just curious of your opinion of that because I think in the creative world, I guess I have
Yeah.
people come all over the place where they're like, do whatever you want. And then there's other people like,
Yeah.
this is exactly what we're looking for. I'm like, you have no idea what it's like on the backside.
Yeah. No, exactly. I will say, and that's the nice part about working with Taylor Bell is that if I'm like struggling with anything at all, I can take it to her and say, okay, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm struggling with. Help. And she at least is a good sounding board to bounce ideas off of, or she'll kind of point me in the right direction or whatever that may be. So that's very nice to have around too.
Yeah, working by yourself, I realized how little you have to share or
Yeah.
like the value of working with others.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'm
my
like,
poor sisters, they see all of our Sunny Okanagan stuff, and I'm like, "What do you guys think?" They're like, "Yeah, it looks good." I'm like, "I need real opinion."
yes. And that I wish there were more. I think it's always so hard if you don't have someone like, maybe it goes back to your like, you need just a good mentor. But then I also
Yeah.
worry about like, at what point do you need to like start paying people for their time when I'm like, okay, look at this, look at this.
Hey, please, can you just look at this really quick? I know it's 8:30 at night, but I just need you to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me think, Kelsey, do you do additional education or like, I don't want to say continue learning, but are you just YouTube as necessary or have you done anything that's been helpful over the years?
I really wish that I have. I try to go to as many of the like ag type things because I am typically at those kinds of events. So if I'm there, I'll go to those things. I really want to go to the Adobe Max conference and like see what that's all about and get out of kind of the ag industry for a conference or something. But I haven't done any continued education that's been specified, just like some YouTube courses. And there's actually a lot of courses on YouTube that like build on each other and like you can watch the whole series. I'll play those sometimes when I'm just sitting and editing photos or like doing admin and things like that. And those are pretty handy. I also learn a lot off of TikTok, especially for graphic design. Good stuff on that TikTok.
Well, and I like how it's short. Like sometimes YouTube, I'm like, get to the
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I want to briefly touch on, I know we talked a lot about like getting started and whatnot, but gear. I know a lot of people are photographers that get turned videographers, filmmakers, whatever you want to call it. And
hmm
there's way more. Like every time I load up my bags, I'm like, why is there so much stuff? What are your essentials or like
Yeah.
what is the bare necessities, especially knowing that like traveling makes it hard. So you take what you
Yeah.
need.
Yeah, absolutely. So, starting with cameras, I am a diehard Sony girl. I have been for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now. Will not be going back. Sorry to all my Canon lovers, and I guess if you have a Nikon, sorry. But Sony, I switched. I kind of started off with a higher grade Canon. I got a 70D. It was a still crop frame, but not a kit camera, just for, I think I used it 1 year at OYE and like for some personal stuff. But once I moved past that, I decided I was just going to make the jump straight to mirrorless and just go for it because I knew this is kind of what I wanted to do. So I bought the Sony A7R4, and then now I've upgraded to a 5, and then I also have an S3, which the S3 is definitely a like film camera. That thing's a beast, requires a lot, and it only is a film camera, which, especially for event coverage and things like that, I prefer my R5 just because I can go back and forth between photo and video so fast, and it makes my job 100 times easier. But I do not leave the house without the R5 or the R4, just double camera interviews, those kinds of things. If I'm going to like a on farm shoot or something, I'll take the S3. I think outside it does really nicely with light. I can color grade that really nicely. It, like, especially the like inside barn silhouette type things, I think it does a really really nice job with filming. But the 7200 2.8 lens, that's pretty common, widely known across the industry. um I don't really do event coverage. I don't really do anything without that lens, to be honest, just because it's so versatile. I film a lot of handheld too, and that is comfortable in my hands. It's comfortable for me to hold. Is it maybe heavy? Yes, but I guess it's kind of
Suffer.
like a workout for the day. I also have a 2.8 24 to 70 that I love. It's, again, very versatile. I would maybe like to upgrade that to something with a little bit lower f-stop, but I got her on a really good deal at Bedford's in Oklahoma City, so we're using it.
Take it when you can get it.
Exactly. I never, ever, ever leave the house without my 85 millimeter 1.8. I don't use it to film very often, but that second shot interview, perfect, buttery. Love it so much with the 1.8. And that's what I use for portraits, which I do get roped into portraits more often than we would think for being a filmmaker. But
Got to do everything, right?
exactly, exactly. As far as mics and things like that go, the Sony like in camera in body sound is relatively good. So I just throw a Rode mic on top, typically like a shotgun Rode mic, and call that good. If I need like interview footage or anything like that, I have the Sony wired mics. I do have those DJI mics that we talked about that one time. The wireless ones, they're really fun to put on the like microphone stick and make the kids share. That's really fun. But other than that, they're not my favorite thing ever. Sorry, DJI. But other than the drone, I always take the drone with me too. That's just kind of a fun little, it's a different angle. I mean, everybody loves a drone shot. Anymore, I think they're maybe a little bit overused. Don't come at me for that. But I do think that they have their place and they definitely prove different angles are impactful. So I think that kind of sums up gear. I have a gimbal. I really only take it to weddings. It's fun at livestock shows, but it's a pain in the butt to balance, and it's just another thing you got to travel with. Same on the farm. Like, I would just rather be a little bit more comfortable, especially being, out in the field with cows or whatever. It's easier to just have my camera on me and not have a gimbal and all those things. So I do travel with tripods, but they're like the Manfrotto Be Free. They're super lightweight, nothing big and bulky. Again, traveling all the time. So if it can fit in a suitcase, even better.
Okay, that's where you should plug the bags that we were just talking about in Denver. What is your like
Yes.
go-to camera case?
Yeah. So if you see me, this is gonna be like, what, girl, you have a Pelican, which I do have a Pelican, but it's on its last leg and it's only like 3 years old. So I will be getting a condition one case. My boss put me on. They are the bomb. They've got big wheels. The handle is really nice. There's foam between the pocket layer on top and like where your cameras and stuff go. So everything's protected. and the latches are really nice. They come in fun colors. I'll probably end up getting black, but that is my next purchase, I think. I should be good on camera upgrades and things like that right now. So maybe a new way to protect them all.
It was already on their website like as soon as we got home because I'm like, I hate the Pelican with my whole being.
Yes.
Absolutely not. And my husband also,
I
like, it's
used to
so many,
like it.
just not, I guess, indestructible is the only thing it's worth for.
That is true. Yes. And it's like sleek. I think I will say I think the Pelican is a little bit sleeker than like the Nana and the Condition one, but they both fit in an overhead bin the same. So doesn't bother me how sleek it is.
Yeah, if it works. And honestly, like, I think that maybe it's too sleek for everything. Like, I drug mine up and down the hill when you're in Denver and like the tires are gone and the rock,
Yeah.
like, there's no, so I guess I'll take a little clunkier if it works better for the terrain that we're on more often.
No kidding. Especially because I just kind of take that thing and throw it in the back of these guys' trucks or just kind of put it in the nose of the trailer. Like, stay safe, little buddy.
Yeah, hope you make it
And it
out.
needs to be kind of rugged.
For sure. Yeah. When you throw your other stuff in, are you just using a suitcase? This is actually probably just like more of a me question because, yeah, I can't figure out the best thing for like big tripods. Or do you take lights when you
Neither.
travel?
It depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes I do, like during nationals and stuff, I'll take fun lights just to have and make sure if we want to use them. Producers, not as much. I try to film them outside. In the winter, though, if we got to be in a barn or something, I'll take lights and make sure that I at least have enough to brighten everybody up.
Yeah. So many fun things. Every time I get to just do photos, I'm like, camera, batteries, cards.
Done.
I can make anything work.
Yeah, no,
This is
seriously.
so easy.
Seriously. I flew actually to Manhattan in December for the first time without my camera in a year. And I was like, I'm
Oh my
missing
gosh.
something. I'm missing something. It
Yeah,
wasn't,
it's
but
like your computer, like when you start working and then you don't have it, you're like, oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
Okay, I think that was all very helpful, very like good level overview. I want to shift a little bit as we kind of wrap up things in terms of like inspiration, growth. Like now that you've been doing this 6 or 7 years, I guess what do you think was the most pivotal thing for you in terms of like becoming a better filmmaker or even photographer? Like I maybe those go hand in hand, but is there like a moment or a project or something that really like, you crossed the line on?
Like two, kind of. One would definitely be I did also, I forgot to mention this, but I did the legacy livestock imaging internship when I was in college too. Heidi shoots OYE and has known JD forever, and JD was like, "You need to go learn how to do photo from this gal. I'll teach you video, don't worry." I was like, "Okay, perfect." Well, then I show up to this internship, and she's like, "Kelsey, you have to stop the motion, capture it this time." And I was like, "Bingo, got it. Okay, stopping motion, filming is capturing motion. Duh, hello." Like my eyes were open, right? And then I feel like I really took that and ran with it for a few years and like focused on just capturing shots and putting them together, how the like motion of things makes a person feel and like what kind of emotion it adds to transitions and those kinds of things. And then when I started at AHA, it was definitely a transition because I'd done some like on farm features, but they were more like junior exhibitor spotlight type things. So my first 3 weeks on the job, we packed up and went back to the Northwest and spent a week kind of on farm. We went to I think 5 or 6 different places, but we ended up at one of the ranches and came away with like a 6-minute video, a 3-page brochure thing. We ran some ads with it, but we really like created a complete package with this story. And I think being able to read Wes's writing and see the strategy that Taylor Bell was putting behind it for like the marketing part and then being able to take his interview and do what I do and tell that story, like kind of form that kind of narrative, I guess, for the story was really like eye opening and kind of pushing it out to the public and how they perceived it was really neat for all three of us as a team. And then obviously on the other side as a storyteller too, it was really cool. But I think those were definitely my two moments that were kind of like, hello, eyes are open, light bulbs on.
Speak to what you just talked about with like, I guess one project having multiple, maximizing the distribution is maybe the better way to say that. When you're going to a project, you always have that plan in place, or like how are you always trying to think about like what can we get out of this one shoot, this one project?
Yeah, I think specifically for Hereford things, knowing like the different programs that the producer partakes in, or where they sell their calves, where they buy their bulls, like those kinds of things prior to going there, and then knowing what we can do with that kind of content on the backside once we get back to the office and those kinds of things is definitely super helpful. However, like when we're sitting there building the story, I feel like there's like once you're on the trip that it's going to turn into a multi-level marketing project, you just kind of know because you're like, holy cow, this place is good. Like we're getting good photos, we're getting good video. He said all the right things or she said all the right things. Like this is going really well. And then we also hand that off to the editor of the magazine. They turn it into a magazine story. It kind of just like when you know, that's also pretty cliche, but unfortunately, I think cliche is kind of the fun part of communications. That's where you strike luck. But um, when we go out and do those, like especially marketing campaign or like advertising campaigns and things, having that prior knowledge of where they're, I guess, at in the industry through programs and things like that is super helpful.
When you talk about photo and video or switching back and forth, or even like for these shoots, making sure you get both, I guess I'm trying to phrase this the right way. I know that there are, like, as soon as I started doing video stuff, I was like, we could video everything. Like, you could just like, you can make a video for this and this and this and whatever. When are you guys thinking, as you talk about like content as a whole, when are you determining what's the best use of video versus photo or even graphics as you're trying to share messages and stories?
I don't remember where I heard this. I think it was on a podcast or something, but the guy said we don't need to be making noise just to make noise. And I try to keep that like really forward, especially when thinking about social and pushing, important messages and things like that out on social media. But I try to make sure it's pretty balanced, and I think video has a like different emotional pull than a set of photos or a graphic would, but also a graphic has a different like messaging type pull than. Did I lose you? Oh no, there you are. It has a different like messaging than a video would. So I think we really try to collaborate on that and make sure that we're kind of spreading the wealth and not bogging down the video and trying to push out 6 videos on top of each other because that just never goes well. But also not, you don't want to line up 15 graphics in a row.
If you think about businesses or other associations externally, do you think everyone needs to be doing video?
I think in 2026, it's kind of, um, you're leaving a lot on the table if you're not doing video. But that doesn't mean it has to be professional video by any means. Like, I don't think everybody needs to have a setup like mine just chilling in their home office because they think that their business needs video. I think if you hired somebody one time to do like a nice our story video and then just made sure to keep up with your handy dandy, very expensive camera that you carry around in your pocket, that's just or like it's worth just as much.
I think it'd be so fun to do maybe like a shoot or something like side by side with an iPhone and a camera, because it is, I mean, people have made like professional music videos, right? Like done all these things. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know. Sometimes I get mad at my camera because I'm like, I've spent all this and I've learned all this. And then there's a camera or your phone that
Yeah.
works just as great. I
Yeah,
think that
so actually, if you watch the World Hereford Conference recap video, there's like 10 or 15 iPhone shots in there
from you.
because either my camera, yeah, because my camera was packed up and like we were at the bus, but the sunrise was pretty, and I was like, nah, I'll see if I can make it work. And then it really worked. We did I think it was a move-in video at OYE entirely with JD's iPhone one year. And so I was like, you know what? I know it works. We'll see. Sure enough, it sure does.
That's
from
so
this thing
cool.
sideways. It's 1080 by 1920.
Yeah. When you're shooting on your phone, are you always shooting? I guess I always see like the TikTokers talk about this, like what your camera settings are. Do you think that like, are you trying to shoot in 4K 60 on your phone or does it matter?
I don't shoot in 4K on my phone. I just shoot in 1080p just because that's what my camera shoots at. So I didn't really think, why should I change it, right? It's at the same aspect anyway. So I haven't noticed a difference. I do think that there might be a difference in like Instagram Reels. I feel like when I look at other content creators that I know have like a content phone and it's set up for 4K and they're using their back camera and it's relatively new, looks very different from my iPhone 13 Pro Max that it has seen some stuff, right? So there's probably some differences, but I think the one thing about iPhone cameras is turning off that smart preview, standard preview, whatever, so that the photos you take are JPEGs, not HEIC format,
I didn't know
whatever that
this.
is. Yes, yes, queen.
Oh my
It's in your
gosh.
camera settings. Hold on. I'll screenshot it after for you and send it to you because like bull photos and stuff, if my dad's taking photos on his phone that he's like, "Oh, I want this in the catalog." But then he sends it to me and it's this big and it's an HEIC format, which I can't open with any Adobe program for some reason.
Right.
Riddle me that. So yeah, I found that little trick out a couple years ago. It'll save you.
That is fascinating. Yeah, I've always wondered why that was that way, but little did we know you could
Yeah,
just change it. It's
you sure
amazing what you don't
can.
know.
I know, you learn something new every day. Well, I tell you.
If you were to go back in time and like if there was one thing that you wish you would have learned from the beginning, what would that be? Especially thinking about younger creators.
Oh, I think it's something I still struggle with, but like just not necessarily confidence, but like being able to kind of tunnel vision your projects and what you're working on and not comparing them to everybody else. So it's like something that this industry also kind of gets pretty bogged down in. And I feel like, especially in college, trying to learn and grow, it was really hard to learn when I couldn't break apart like pieces of a graphic or pieces of a video. And then I would just kind of get in my head, like, "Oh, why can't I do that?" Well, yeah, you can. You just have to, like, apply yourself and learn some more things. But definitely, like, the confidence and that kind of thing, like, the only way to learn is to do it. So you might as well just do it.
That's such a great piece of advice. Yeah, comparison is the thief of all
The
joys.
thief of all joy. Yeah, something like that.
Yep. That's I think it's hard when you want to be supportive. Or I guess I struggle with this of like, I don't want to delete people's social media pages. I love even following your stuff, but like sometimes I'm like, okay, well, that's still like, how do you be supportive and inspired,
Yeah,
but not do the same thing or not feel defeated? Such a
right.
struggle.
Yeah, that's also, I'm trying to be better about intentionally consuming media in 2026. So we'll see how that goes.
Do you think that you have to be on social media though to like keep up with things?
You know, I think if you would have asked me 2 years ago, my answer would have been different. But I do think you at least need to be connected. Not necessarily like online by any means, but like once a week, twice a week, looking through and seeing kind of like where the trends are going, or at least looking at like sponsored ads and those kinds of posts from any sort of company. I mean, you could go anywhere from sports teams and those kinds of things to clothing lines and like just like seeing media, but I also think that you can probably get that in a different way. It's just not going to be quite the same kind of like influence that you'd have if you were seeing it on your phone.
Such a
I've
struggle.
always kind of, yeah, I've always struggled with the thought of like deleting my social media because I'm like, I'm on my phone all the time. But then it's like, well, I'm not going to see what things are happening for work and for what I do.
Yeah, well,
Always
and
around and around.
even adding another layer of like, I think about, okay, can I delete it? And then I'm like, can I not post? Because I'm working with clients where like I'm telling them that they need video. And so for me to run a business, like, and even like think of bull sales, like there are a lot of people that have been totally fine without marketing at all. So then I'm
Yeah,
like, well, how can, where's the line of like, you can do it, like you said, like get a good brand story video and roll with it with occasional things, or like it's hard to talk the talk and not walk the walk. But I hate
Exactly.
no one really, I guess social media isn't always fun or content
No, it's not.
creation or whatever.
No, I sit and lay in bed at night thinking about it. Like, that's not very fun. What in the world?
Yeah, lots of good things. Kelsey,
Yeah.
I appreciate lots of different things that we've talked about. I have wrap up
We could go on
questions.
forever.
Yeah, I literally could. I'm also like, I didn't ask you this, or this. Actually, I do have to ask one thing because I think this is, especially actually getting to see you in action at World Hereford Conference. How does turnaround times dictate your like quality of project, knowing that like you're turning things around really fast? And then there's other projects you're like, okay, this isn't gonna, we shoot this in an ideal time, but I don't know what editing looks like, but it's not getting done until 6 months down the road. How does that play a role in what you're doing?
I think especially like for event coverage when I'm turning video like within the day, sometimes like high quality produced out videos, interviews, B-roll, graphics, those kinds of things. It's definitely something that like I have to be prepped for like in my head because I'm storyboarding. I don't do any like physical storyboarding for those kinds of things typically, but I'm always thinking about it. I'm thinking about what the shots will look like while I'm shooting them, making sure that I have full sequences in my head, like trying to make sure that those things are checked off the list while the event's happening and the content needs to be turned. So I do think that's where like some planning comes in and like knowing what kind of content we want to be kicking out in the first place really helps. But also that's typically where inspiration strikes too. So then I'll get a wild hair and be 3 videos deep when it was really only supposed to be one, and that's how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's a fun talk about like when you earlier said like you just need to do it. Sometimes I feel like those, I don't know if event coverage is always the best example, but like high turnaround things just make you like get it out of the way and you're like, okay, that could have
Yeah.
been better, or that we could do this different, but like at least you like got it like fully pushed off the desk.
Right. Yeah. I think that's unfortunately, I would have said probably 4 or 5 years ago that I definitely fit into that like perfectionist category because I didn't want to leave things unfinished. I would look at graphics 100 million times before and like erase pixels at a time, like crazy things, right? But then when you like really get into the swing of like high pace and high priority, also like at the same time, it you do have to embody that just do it. But like I'm sure you've seen the meme that's like do it tired, do it scared, do it whatever, and it goes on a million times. Like that is really the reality of breed association work, especially on a small team. But I try not to let it interfere with quality. Do I misspell things? Yeah. Do I leave things that I look at it on social media 2 weeks later and go, why did I do that? Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, we are to the final wrap up questions after a wonderful conversation. I'm glad I just asked that last question. I'm guessing you potentially listen to podcasts more than books, than read books. But if you have or listen to either, do you have any recommendations?
So I read this in your notes, and it's not a traditional book. Let me look it up on Amazon so I can show you the cover. I meant to bring it, but type E and A, so I forget things everywhere.
Type A and B.
Yeah.
Love that.
It's called Steal Like an Artist, and it's not like a picture book or anything like that, but it's like smaller in size, and it just more has like, it's a motivational guide, I would say, that encourages like creativity. That's what it looks like. It's like $8 on Amazon.
Perfect.
It's very good, and I have it annotated. I think it's like maybe 200 pages. Like, it's wonderful, but it's all about creativity and staying inspired and staying motivated to create and things like that. So when I'm in a slump, I try to read it.
I love that. I need to do a better job of sharing all the recommendations from the podcast, like on social. So maybe I'll start now that you've shared that.
Yeah, that's a good one. And it's like, again, really, really easy read.
Which is even better. Then it forces people to read it.
Exactly.
Next question. What does it mean to you to cultivate your skill or profession?
Well, that's a good one. I think the word cultivate itself reminds me of FFA and like really beginning to cultivate, but beginning to like learn and grow and like develop yourself and your skills. So cultivating in this space in this industry is definitely backed up by relationships and strengthening those relationships within the industry and just showing up every day and putting my best foot forward to my craft.
I love it. I added that one because I think it is a little like abstract of a concept. So I'm curious what people's opinions of it are. Final question. What piece of advice would you give to younger creatives wanting to learn more about photo and video?
My biggest piece of advice, I think, is just to ask questions. I think a lot of people have been, like, not necessarily scared, but just kind of shy from asking questions because they're nervous or whatever it may be. They're new, but I promise we want to share. If I could teach every single person how to do exactly what I do, and we can have just like 6 of me, I'd be doing that. So please ask questions. Please have a willing to learn attitude and we will be best friends. So also, it's not that serious. Like, we're telling stories. So it's just about as serious as writing picture books. So
I think that is a wonderful way to end, especially considering, I guess that's what this whole mission is about, of like getting more people together, because there can't be enough Kelseys out there to do everything that needs to be done to promote ag and businesses and all the things.
yes, exactly. If I could clone myself or even just clone the experience that I had and send like 5 other people through it and say, okay, I'll see you in 3 years, be ready to work, I would.
Be ready to work.
I would.
No shortage of work around here, but it's fun work.
Yeah, that's true. It's fun and it's rewarding, but there's no shortage of it.
That's funny. Well, Kelsey, thank you so much for sharing what you could over this hour conversation. And I encourage you guys to follow Kelsey on social and American Hereford Association. And what's your family's operation?
The Sunny Okanagan Angus. The tag is Sunny OK Angus though, so you don't have to worry about spelling Okanagan. Or Veraska.
So thank you so much, Kelsey.
Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Yeah, thank you. It was good to chat.
It was very fun. And I hope that, well, I know lots of people will get stuff out of this. So excited to see what they think. Bye, Kelsey.
Bye, Kelsey.
Bye.